Hello guys, only a few days left for the Season of Blood start and I would like to talk about new exciting possibilities for Necromancer. General idea for this video is to skip talking about every single change from patch notes for the Necromancer class, as they are already covered by other content creators, and focus on particular builds that in my opinion have a chance to be competitive. Of course, changes to how the game works at its core are so big that it's really hard to predict the future, so be prepared for a dose of theory crafting. I've made a document with my initial thoughts about the builds and all of the Necromancer changes gathered in one place. Link to this document is in the description. My initial plan for Season of Blood was to continue working on my Bone Spear build from previous videos and adapting it to the new vampiric powers. As we all know, Bone Spear, as the outlier in performance in Season 1, got its key passive nerfed in half, and build as a whole suffers from changes to how damage buckets work now. Does it mean that the Bone Spear builds are going to be unplayable in Season 2? Definitely not. Of course, damage numbers will be lower, but simplicity and raw power of how Bone Spear works and how its damage scales will probably make Bone Spear a completely viable build in the coming season. Thing is, besides numbers, nothing really changes for the Bone Spear in Season 2. Paragon board and glyphs should stay the same. Build is going to utilize the same aspects, and to be fair, none of the new uniques and even seasonal mechanic. Vampiric powers shouldn't change the general idea how the build works at its core. As I really like to try new stuff, I couldn't pass by all of the exciting changes to our class. That's why I decided to start the season with working on shadow builds, which in opposite to Bone Spear got a huge amount of good stuff, and I'm really excited to see their performance. I would like to talk about these changes and present to you two main builds that came to my mind. First one is a Blight Corpse Explosion build with the lidless wall, created mainly for efficient clearing of tier 100 Nightmare dungeons, and it's a build I will start this season with. Link to the build with a full Paragon board is in the description, so you can check it. But for now, quick talk about how it works and how it benefits from the new changes. Here we have aspects we are using in this build. We have two defensive ones, Disobedience and Shielding Storm, aspect of Explosive Mist, Ghostwalker aspect, which synergizes very well with one of the new vampiric powers, two Shadow Blight aspects, aspect of Decay and Blighted aspect, Ultimate Shadow, which makes our Bone Storm Darkness skill, aspect of Grasping Veins, which is still really good, Lidless Wall, and new addition to our class, aspect of the Long Shadow, which should allow us to generate essence at very high rate without using basic skill. Vampiric powers I chose for this build are a Curse Touch, which is our main tool to inflict vampiric curse on enemies, Flowing Veins, which increase our damage over time, Metamorphosis, which triggers our Ghostwalker aspects on evade, and two powers that unlocks Vulnerable Bucket and Critical Strike Bucket. We are not investing in Critical Strike chance in this build, but our Shadow Blight can still benefit from it, and this is the way to unlock it. There is nothing fancy about Book of the Dead sacrifices. We are sacrificing Reapers, Cold Mages, and Iron Golem. And here are the stats we should look for in this build. Main difference in comparison to previous seasons is that we are not targeting crit chance on our rings and gloves, and stats on the weapon are slightly different. Now quick run through skill tree. And we can go to Paragon board. This is the final version of the Paragon board for level 100 characters. We are starting with Scorch, which, just like Darkness, is not updated on the site yet, as it scales with intelligence now, and we are putting 70 intelligence within the radius. Then we are going for the Wither board with a control glyph and 65 intelligence within it. Next is the Flesh Eater board and Darknet glyph with 75 intelligence. Our fourth board is the Scent of Death with Sacrificial, and we are finishing it with the new Exhumation glyph, which boosts our corpse explosion damage and gives us good source of Fortify. We can also swap Sacrificial in the fourth board for the Blood Drinker to bolster our Fortify generation even further. We are using 5 intelligence glyphs and invest huge amount of intelligence in 3 of them, which scales really well with the new Wither effect. It was just a quick showdown. If it turns out build is working during the season, I would like to make a complete guide. Shadow Wave build is the concept I'm going to definitely work with later in the season when I get all of the necessary aspects. It's the benefactor of all good changes to Shadow DoT builds, but it's also utilizing a new glyph with a huge potential, the Desecration. In Scent of Death Paragon board, we can get up to 54 willpower, which gives almost 650% damage boost to DoT effects left by our Blood Waves. They will also benefit from other damage additions, such as Darkness and Scourge glyphs, with their legendary node, and with high enough CDR and Fast Blood aspect, it should be possible to throw wave after wave. Remember that, thanks to Tidal aspect, every Blood Wave cast leaves 3 pools of shadow damage. The only thing I'm worrying about with this build is a lack of the shield generation from the Bone Storm. But in previous season, when I was testing Bloodwave Bone Spear variant, Blood Orbs generation was high enough for Temerity to create constant barrier, so I think it might be the way to solve that problem. Those are the main builds I'm going to test at the start of the Season 2, and I'm really excited for both of them and shadow damage buffs overall. My thoughts about Blood and Minion builds can be found in the document also, but TLDR. I think Bloodlands builds, utilizing the new Blood Moon Breaches unique and Vampiric Power Blood Boil, should be competitive, but I still don't like general concept of overpower as fishing for guaranteed procs or not doing any damage at all. So working on blood builds is not my goal, at least at the beginning of the season. As for the minion buffs, I think they are all steps in the right direction. Minion build in some form, utilizing the Ring of Mendel, will probably be pretty good at boss killing, but my main issue is those builds are way too tight to the ring mentioned above, and base damage of the minions itself, despite recent buffs, will probably be still too low. Also, in my opinion, minion builds can be sometimes unreliable when it comes to high nightmare pushing and speedrunning. Like I said in the beginning, link to the document is in the description. So if you are looking for all of the Necromancer changes gathered in one place and a few of my thoughts about state of the Necromancer at the beginning of the Season 2, feel free to use it. If you are looking for competitive Necromancer gameplay, theory crafting, or just looking for the builds for the hardest content in the game, I would be very grateful for every like and subscribe. If you have any questions or ideas, feel free to share it in the comments. I would gladly answer to any. Hope you guys are as excited for the new season as I am, and see you in the sanctuary.